Hey guys, Chad Hoover, Kayak Bassing TV. So I get a lot of questions about, what do I do to mix it up to catch fish when other people are having a problem. Wintertime is generally when people have the hardest time finding fish, locating fish, catching fish, and we'll talk about the finding fish and locating fish and all that later. This tip is specifically about when you find them. You can see them on the depth finder. You know that they're there, whatever. You've got the fish located. So here's a little trick that I use. I'm going to show you. I use a lot of shaky heads, wiggle heads, different names for this, stand-up jigs, and they end up getting rusted or the tip's not as sharp as it wanted, as it once was. And so a lot of people will throw that stuff away. Well, they're expensive, especially if you use higher end tungsten and some of the stuff's out there. So let me show you a trick. Get a shop rag for safety and kind of wrap it around the jig head. Get yourself a set of diagonal cutters, dikes. You're not supposed to say that anymore, being politically correct, but that's what they are, diagonal cutters. So use that and you're going to cut off the hook, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second. But you want to hold it with the shop rag and you want to just clip that hook shank off. Make sure you dispose of that right there properly, because if that ends up in the old lady's vacuum cleaner, one of the kids' feet, it's a problem. So make sure you dispose of that properly. What you're going to be left with is a little head like that right there. And I really like these ones with either the wire pointer or the screw lock on the end for this particular application. So you've heard me talk about stick baits, you've heard me talk about frogs before, and what happens is when they get torn up on the end, you end up throwing away some really expensive plastics. So what I like to do is cut these in different lengths. I like to use an X-Acto knife. Sometimes you can use a pocket knife, but X-Acto knife helps me do it really nice and clean. And so all I do, and I'm not going to show you cutting it, it's just cutting it, is just trim those Senkos down and make little pieces of them like that. Now, I'm going to show you some variations on this as we go through, but the basic idea is that you now take this screw and you stick it into the end of that. It's going to be a lot like a Ned Rig. I actually refer to this as a Chad rig because, I kind of think I came up with it, but whatever. So here we are. So what you're going to use is you're going to use a drop shot style hook and put it up on the end of that. And when I started this, there's probably a lot of folks out there like, why are you leaving that eye on the bottom of that? Well, if I hook my hook up here at the tip and I go to set the hook and I catch a fish and it shakes its head, then this thing is going to be gone, and I'm going to go through a whole bunch of these if I don't have a way of saving it. So you can kind of see the general gist. As I hold that up with a hook tip on the end, that's going to have a lot of action. I started using this as a river fishing technique. Now I've adopted it to, even techniques like punching and dropping into holes and pinpoint punching, more so than punching through mats, but dropping it into holes in thick vegetation. But I've got one of these rigged up, but as you can see, what you'll do is you'll attach your line there and you'll run it to a drop shot hook up at the top, leave enough slack that you can still get action, but you throw that out there and it goes straight to the bottom, boom, ends up standing up just like that, and you can get a lot of action out of that setup. Skipping it under docks, this thing is unreal for skipping. If you're not really that good at skipping, this is a great way to start, especially with a bait caster. So let me show you what this thing looks like rigged up. So all you're going to do is tie the line right there to the eye, just like that. And then you're going to come up and tie the hook. And what I like to do is I like to tie the hook first with a Palomar. And then I like to take the hook and set the length based on what lure setup I'm using and tie the tag in onto the jig head or the ball that I now have to use for my weight. So when that thing is laying on the bottom, just like that, and you pick up on the front, it brings that thing to life. You can drag it across the bottom real easy. And so here's a trick. Make sure that you tie it with the eye of the ball up to the side that the hook's going to be on so that it keeps it from getting tangled up. But man, that right there is super deadly. I really like using this around wood. I like using this around other stuff. But as you see right there, I've got that hook point turned down. I've got that turned down when I want to bring it through grass. When you want to bring it over wood, you just simply pop the hook point out, flip it over, come in through the bottom, and that hook point will be exposed like that. Now, here's the cool thing about this setup right here. In the wintertime, when the bite is tough, I know there's a lot of action right there, but in the wintertime when the bite is tough, if you can see that hook point is sticking out, man, let me tell you, when that fish grabs a hold to that hook point is, gotcha. So when the bite's tough, when you're fishing open bottom, when you're fishing shell beds, when you're fishing mussels, things like that. You can drag this thing along the bottom, boom, boom, boom. Has a lot of action, brings your bait to life, gives you a whole new use for your useless or thought to be useless pieces of stick baits. You can actually get a couple of them out of the bait, but don't throw away these jig heads, shaky heads, the ones with the screw locks on them, the ones with the prongs that stick up in the bottom, stand-up jig heads. Now, you can make variations on this from an 1/8 of an ounce that I've got here on up to a 1/4 of an ounce. You can really use this as all kinds of different setups. And if you look at the way that I got this one set up right there, the line itself actually serves as a pseudo weed guard when I'm dragging this through and up and over the top of wood. I flip it the other way for grass, because I actually like to catch a little bit of grass and kind of rip it out of there and catch fish. But that setup right there, you know, I'm not trying to coin a phrase, but I call that my Chad rig. I show this to people. One of those things that I haven't gone out and publicly talked about, and I've never shown it on the show before, but that little dude right there brings any soft plastic to life. And for the tough bite in the wintertime or the dog days of summer, having that hook point exposed like that will probably triple or even quadruple your hookup. So don't throw away your jig heads, repurpose them. Make sure that you think safety. Don't clip this thing off and shoot the hook point across the room into your wife or kid's eye. Make sure you throw away the tag in piece of the hook. Set your distance correctly when tying the knot onto your jig head, and you'll have a perfect wintertime bottom fishing or summertime dog days fishing lure that'll catch them when anything else won't. But this thing works year round, and it can bring almost any presentation to life. So Palomar knot, old jig head, wiggle head, shaky head, stand up. Again, don't throw them away, repurpose them. This works great with stick baits. This works great with creature baits. This works even better with tubes. And so just think about rigging it backwards when you're trying to catch fish, when the bite is tough, when the bite is slow, and you got to make every one of them count. I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bassin TV. Hope you like this tip. Do me a favor, comment below if you think there's any improvements that I could make, or if you'd like to see me set this up a different way. I like to fish this setup on a really light action drop shot style spinning rod when I'm fishing super deep, and I like to fish it on a medium to medium heavy shorter rod when I'm fishing it on a casting rod. So do me a favor, comment below. Please like this video if you think this tip was helpful. And as always, please subscribe to Kayak Bassin TV so we can keep bringing you cool content.